Is there a war coming in the Middle East? Are we headed toward a one-world government, a one-world religious system? Will America be attacked again? Do ancient prophetic texts warn of a time we are living in? Are we in the last days, the time of Jacob's trouble, the end of the world as we know it? And what of the increase of UFO sightings? While we may disagree as to what is causing the phenomenon, we can agree that it is real, burgeoning, and not going away. Is this the coming great deception that ancient prophecy warns us about? Does time seem to be accelerating? Join me, your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli, as we explore these and other riveting and stimulating topics. This is Acceleration Radio.
Understand why, and it's searching cry to understand why, and it's searching cry.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new Acceleration Radio right here on KGRA. Great to be back in the saddle. I've got some weeks where we're not on the show. Basically, the reason for that, you can see on the video anyway, that I'm here in my little 28-foot trailer on my burned-out property. But we've already got a lot done. We planted 35 pepper trees. The wells are working. We still don't have power. We don't have the building permit. We're getting closer to actually getting the building permit, which is fantastic. I've lived on this property for 42 years. It is home. And we have a beautiful view of the ocean, and we're building a fireproof house made by Gigacrete, G-I-G-A, Gigacrete.com, Gigacrete.com, and I'll be videoing this whole thing as it goes up. This is revolutionary. It's a fantastic product. Not too many people know about it, but if you're considering a barn, a shed, or a home, check out Gigacrete. It's fireproof. It can withstand 150-mile-an-hour gale winds. It's an amazing product, and it's revolutionary, and it goes up really quickly. And I designed the house, and I'm just really happy to be part of the Gigacrete family. But let's roll right into it. First of all, I want to talk about the Boy Scouts. I was listening to Rush Limbaugh a couple of days ago. This whole deal came down where there's so many sexual misconduct cases in the Scouts that the Scouts have declared bankruptcy, which is, sort of a cop-out, but whatever. They're going to continue Chapter 11. That gets into a whole legalistic deal, which I don't really want to get into. However, what I find interesting about this, remember a while back, decades ago really, the Scouts were pressured to let homosexual Scoutmasters be Scoutmasters. So what's wrong with this picture, right? It's unbelievable. Look, I was in Boy Scouts. I was a life scout. I was 10 merit badges away from Eagle. And I hit 13, got interested in girls, and that was the end of that. But Boy Scouts taught me a lot. I loved the Scouts. I really did. I went on jamborees, camporees. I absolutely loved being a Boy Scout. It was fantastic. I learned knots and knot tying that I still use today, like sheepshanks and bowlines and all this kind of stuff. Obviously a square knot. But, I knew a whole bunch of knots, mastheads, for those of you who are knots tiers out there. But I love the Scouts. I love camping, the art of fire making and using flint and steel, which I learned how to do in Boy Scouts. I was also Order of the Arrow. And look, I never saw anything even remotely that would be construed as homosexual behavior in the Scouts. Now, this is circa 1961 to 1964, somewhere in that window of time, from when I'm about 10 and a half, 11, into 13, 14 years old. In fact, I was a counselor at Camp Horseshoe, Rising Sun, Maryland. That's the same camp, I'll digress for a minute here, where I saw my first UFO. I was like 12 or 13. I was with 4 boys. We were walking up a ravine, taking a shortcut to lunch. And the first guy goes, "Wow, what's that?" And the other 2 boys go, "Wow, what is that?" And I go, "Where?" And they point. And I'm looking at this classic silver disc, and you've heard me tell this story before, hovering in the sky. I was just totally blown away by that. And we watched it for a good 20 seconds, and then it just shot straight up in the air and disappeared. We ran back to camp. We saw a UFO. We saw a flying saucer. Everybody gathered around us. The Scoutmasters came out. We saw a UFO. We described what it was like. By the evening meal, remember this was lunchtime. By the evening meal, the other 3 guys denied that they had ever seen anything. Why? Herd mentality. It was my first lesson in the herd mentality. But I digress. I love Boy Scouts, and I was a counselor at Camp Rising Sun, at Camp Horseshoe in Rising Sun, Maryland. That camp is still there. I can actually take you on a map and show you exactly the trail that we were on. It's still there as far as I know. But I've never been back there, I think, since 63 or 64. So my experience in Boy Scouts, there was no homosexual behavior that I was aware of. So now you've got all these lawsuits, and it goes back to the LGBTQ movement, which insists that we're discriminating if we have homosexual scoutmasters. So now you've got all these cases coming up, which has basically bankrupted the Boy Scouts, just like all the homosexual priests in the Catholic Church. The bottom line is, what's the agenda here? Why is this happening now? What's the agenda? And the agenda is this: that it's all well and good to go, equality and diversity is good and all this kind of stuff, but when we have all this diversity that's against what many people believe, and this would be a great segue to get into Pete Buttigieg, and I just will probably do that because he's openly gay. He has a husband for a partner and refers to him as my husband, which I actually find, to me, I just find incredibly offensive. I mean, I really do. And I'm not down and jiggy with it, as they say. Pete is welcome to do whatever he wants to do. It's the law of the land. Thank you, Mr. Obama. Thank you, the Supreme Court, who just legalized gay marriage. The heck with what we think. A bunch of people get around and just, we're going to legalize it. And Obama lights up the White House in rainbow colors. It was completely manipulated by the deep state. In my opinion, there are millions of Americans who tolerate the gay agenda, but are utterly against it. And they're afraid to say anything because of all the pushback. Oh, you're a homophobe. Oh, you're a racist. That's all. Those are the labels that we hear all the time. Because morally, I say that, homosexuality isn't really a good thing, in my opinion. Okay? And I'm stuck with that opinion. But being a born-again, spirit-filled, biblically based Christian, that's what I believe. If you're gay, that's fine. I look, this is how I am. If you're gay and you come up to my table, and this has happened at conferences. In fact, the last conference I was at, there was these two guys in an openly gay marriage, and he introduced his partner as his husband. And I said, oh, nice to meet you. Because what I've learned in my 40 years as a Christian, I treat everyone the same, try to. Now, if you're in my face yelling at me, now we got a different story. But these guys, I did an interview with them, and I treated them the same way I would treat anybody else. So that's set aside. If they ask me what do I think about their openly gay marriage, I would say, well, I don't approve of it. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. See the way that works? I think what you're doing is wrong, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. And I'll help you out, and I'll appear on your film, but I think what you're doing is wrong. So let's move on to the whole Boy Scouts thing, and we'll segue into the Pete Buttigieg deal. Did this happen? And it'd be really interesting to get the statistics. Did all these sexual abuse cases involving scoutmasters, are they all openly gay? Were they grafted into the Scouts after the fact? After the fact that the LGBTQ community pushed that and made the Scouts comply and do it. So now there's Boy Scouts. In fact, they're even trying to take God out of the Boy Scout oath. The Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Well, they don't like that clean and reverent part, that's for sure. But so we get into Pete Buttigieg, and what I find here is incredible. Democratic presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg's brother-in-law, I'm reading this from Breitbart, by the way, Pastor Ryan Glesman criticized Buttigieg on Fox News' Tucker Carlson tonight on Wednesday. Glesman said, in the height of intellectual dishonesty for Pete. It's the height of intellectual dishonesty for Pete Buttigieg to make claims that there's no compatibility with being a Christian and voting for Trump. Pete, in fact, is the one who is pushing agendas and rhetoric that is clearly against Scripture. Look, Buttigieg can talk all he wants, that he's never been closer to God and whatever. Well, what are you basing that on, with all due respect, Mayor Pete? Your feelings? Can't trust your feelings. Trust me. Can't trust your feelings. So what are you really basing this idea that you're really close to God now that you've married your partner? And homosexuality, in my understanding of Scripture, is clearly forbidden in both the Old and the New Testament. And we can tap dance around that till we're blue in the face, but that's what Scripture tells us. And there's a reason for it, because God created woman to be the companion. So the gay people that I've met in my life, and there have been, numbers of them, I'm not talking one or two, there have been numbers of them, and many of them have been molested as children. And that set up this whole, vicious circle, as it were, and led them into this thing. Others were grafted in college and found themselves in this lifestyle. Some, I know several women who were abused by boyfriends, horrifically beaten, and just don't want anything to do with men anymore. And so they found solace in the arms of another woman. So it's complex. And again, I'm not the judge and jury here. I'm just telling you what Scripture says, and that's what I follow, and that's what I adhere to. So I agree with Pastor Glesman that what Pete Buttigieg is promulgating is clearly against Scripture. On abortion, Glesman said, "I'm just in a state of lament when you hear that we have someone running for commander-in-chief who can't make a moral decision on whether to keep a child after it's already been born or to have it killed." That's called infanticide, for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about. And the fact that the left would even stand and argue this tells me just how far down the rabbit hole we really are, just how everything is completely flipped. And of course, this is why I truly believe in the prophetic narrative, the biblical prophetic narrative, that we are at the end of the age. We are coming to a place where lawlessness reigns. The fact that you have to even have a discussion about this, Pete, I'll tell you real easily, Pete. This is how we solve the problem, Pete. Okay, we take you to a place where the baby has just been born, and then we tell you, Pete, kill it. Pete, guess what? You can't kill it, can you? Don't think you could do that, Pete. Why is it so hard then for you to make a decision with that? See, what are the Democrats? What do they really offer? And I'll segue into that in just a minute. But what do the Democrats really offer us? So let's continue with what Pastor Glesman says. I'm just in a state of lament when you hear that we have someone running for commander-in-chief who can't make a moral decision on whether to keep a child after it's already been born or to have it killed. What kind of moral suggestions is he going to be given if he can't come to an understanding of that? It's just alarming. He added, just everything that Pete is pushing is anti-God. I'm going to be honest with you. Nothing lines up with Scripture for him to make cases like to say that you cannot be a Christian and vote for Trump. He's the one that is openly contradicting God's word over and over. And, this is Pete's brother-in-law, and the guy finally came on Tucker Carlson and made a statement. Is Trump the high mark? Is Trump the Billy Graham of the Christian community? Of course not. But he's changed. He's changed a lot in his presidency. And we have an executive in the White House. We have someone who knows how to make the economy work, and the economy is buzzing. Thank you, Donald J. Trump. So moving right along here, what do the Democrats have to offer us? Think about it. What does Bernie Sanders have to offer us? Bernie Sanders, free everything for everybody. We're going to give everything away for free. Hey, guess what, Bernie? How are you going to do that, pal? Meanwhile, you've got 3 homes, you fly around in private jets, and you're going to tell us how to live. And what you're promulgating, what you're pushing is nothing short than communism. And I will say this over and over and over again. The fact is alarming to me that he's so far up there in the polls. It's alarming that the Democratic Party has gone completely over to the left. And part of it is with our youth in the colleges, the whole Antifa movement. The Antifa movement is the real fascist movement. They are the fascists. They don't want free speech. You speak exactly what you want us to speak, and if you do not speak what we want you to speak, we shoot you. What about Greta Thunberg coming up with that thing, basically line them all up against the wall and shoot them? Anyone who doesn't believe in climate warming, climate change, oh my gosh. Well, Greta, and once again, I'm down a rabbit trail here, but, That hasn't really been proven in the statistics that I've seen. So you can cherry pick the statistics all you want, but I'm not believing in this global warming thing. And then of course you have Neil Young. Oh, I'm just so embarrassed for our country. Oh man, lying on the side of a road. I mean, Neil, really, Neil, you're going to weigh in on politics, Neil? Seriously? I think he lives in the next canyon over. I'm not sure of that, but I go by this one place that, in my opinion, has got Neil Young written all over it. And he's got an ocean view, and it's very secluded, kind of a place where he could hide away. But I vehemently disagree with Neil and his politics. I mean, if we were to dissect that, and I'm down another rabbit trail here, but, Neil, what exactly, name me one thing. What are you against Trump? The fact that he's pro-life? So, we can argue that to a blue in the face. The fact that he wants a closed border? Folks, the homeless deal in San Francisco and in Los Angeles is a direct correlation to the drugs that are coming across the border. Because it's an open border, the cartels make billions of dollars every year trafficking, literally, in illegal substances and hooking people in America. We've never had this problem before. It's gotten to the point where it's crazy, and all our governor here in California wants to do, you guessed it, just throw a lot of money at it. But he has no real solutions. Close the flipping border. Shut down the drug cartels. And Trump is right. What we should do is send the military in and wipe out the drug cartels. But of course, the Mexican president won't do that. And all the people on the left burning every open borders, open. If they have their way, if they get into the White House and they take, which I don't think it's going to happen, I honestly think that we'll take back the House and we'll get a supermajority, perhaps in the Senate, and Trump will win by a landslide. I mean, in the history of the modern day presidential races, we've never seen the type of numbers that Trump generates. People sitting in line in tents waiting just to get into the venue. That's unprecedented. So we see something that's absolutely incredible with Trump. But what does really Bernie have to offer? Free stuff. Well, Bernie, how do you pay for the free stuff? Bernie, just tell me how you're going to pay for it. Oh, I know. You're going to tax everybody into oblivion. Well, guess what, Bernie? When you give away free stuff, which is all you guys want to do, it's not free because somebody's paying for it. And what you really want to do is redistribute the wealth, which is like the likes of like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. There should be no billionaires. Really? So now we're going to set a limit. So if I make $999 million, that's okay. But if I make a little bit more and I become a billionaire, somehow you're going to penalize me for that because I've really done well. Is that what we're going to do? We're going to start penalizing people for doing well? You see, this is why the whole deal, it starts in kindergarten, where in first grade during the soccer stuff, where everybody gets a juice box and everybody's a winner. No, everybody isn't a winner, okay? Somebody loses, and that team lost. But that's not how we play the game now. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Everybody gets a little juice box. You're all winners. Everybody gets a medal. No, the medal should go to the winner, not to the losers, because that sets up the whole deal. I'm a capitalist, okay? And I live in America. And what I love about this country is, contrary to what our last President Obama used to say, he doesn't make that. Excuse me, sir, I did make that. Now, I owe a debt to society and the people that mentored me and taught me through the years. I understand that. But it's my idea, okay? It's my idea. It's my burning the midnight oil. It's my research that creates the movies or the books or whatever it is that I'm doing. Now, granted, I live in America and I'm able to do this, which is fantastic. But don't tell me I didn't make it, because I did. And frankly, I take umbrage in that. So what we have is we have someone like Bernie Sanders who's going to take that incentive completely away from us, just like Obama tried to do. Everybody's going to have to give a little more. So everyone's taxed into oblivion. California, this state, we pay 13% of our income to a bloated state government. And Gavin Newsom boasts that he's got billions of dollars. Governor, maybe the best thing to do would be not to tax so many people so much. Because it's my hard-earned money that I'm giving to you, and what do you want to do with it? You just want to create more government and tax me more and find out ways of filling the state coffers with even more money? That's all you guys care about is what about me? What about giving back to me? Here's an example. Many of us lost our home in the fire. 800 people lost their homes in the Woolsey fire. Now, all the politicians, we're going to stand up and make sure that we're right there for the people and we'll expedite the permit process. There's really no expedition of the permit process. Trust me, I'm going through it. And paperwork sits on people's desks and they lose it because they have a house to go back to. I don't. I'm living in a 28-foot trailer, and I'm happy to do that. But if the state really wanted to help us, if government really wanted to help us, they would see, number one, that the permit process was streamlined. Number two, they would just go, these people just lost everything. Maybe until they build their house, they shouldn't pay their property taxes anymore. Whoa, what a novel idea. To think that we wouldn't have to pay our property taxes anymore until we built a house and moved back in. To give us a little bit of a helping hand. Good government would maybe think of that. No, not California. But I love this state. Remember, both revivals happened in California. The whole Jesus movement sprung from the Calvary Chapel movement and the Vineyard movement in California. The Azusa Street movement, huge revival. So let's not write California off. Let's try to change it through prayer, okay, and standing up for what we believe is right. So, what does Bernie really have to offer other than communism? And frankly, I don't want communism. And if Bernie, for some weird, which I don't think is ever going to happen, if he ever did get elected, I think people would rebel at that. I mean, you think the whole thing with Trump, there's no way Bernie would ever get to the White House, in my opinion. So, we've got Warner and Buttigieg and Sleepy Joe, Quid Pro Joe, which, leads us into the whole Ukrainian scandal thing. What about Hunter Biden? Why isn't he really being investigated? Why is it that Roger Stone has to do almost, 3.5 years? That's the verdict came down today under the whole Mueller investigation. Why does that happen? Why does Stone face, 4 years and all this stuff for bogus charges? Meanwhile, Strzok and Page go free. I mean, what about, how does that work out? What about the bogus FISA warrants? What about the bogus Mueller investigation, which turned up absolutely nothing, which was nothing more than a witch hunt? What about the nonsense that we saw in the House of Representatives with the Star Chamber under wide-eyed, bug-eyed Adam Schiff, Mr. Pencilneck, who just, decides to read something into the record which isn't even there, and he's not reprimanded for that? I mean, for the life of me, I don't understand why Roger Stone gets 3.5 years and these other people walk free. How Comey, who set Stone's trial up with Mueller and all this other stuff, and the abuse of FISA warrants, how that can go unprosecuted. For the life of me, I don't get it. I mean, I really don't get it. I don't understand why Hunter Biden, according to everything that I've read and seen and everything else, is receiving millions of dollars for doing nothing, sitting on the board of Burisma. The fact that Quid Pro Joe stated in the public record, and I YouTubed on this before, you can go back and check that out, and basically just stated that, this whole thing, I just said, you got 6 hours before I leave on a plane, fire the prosecutor. Son of a gun. They fired the prosecutor. That's not a quid pro quo. That's the real quid pro, and that's why Sean Hannity nicknamed Biden Quid Pro Joe. But Biden is asleep at the wheel. I don't think he's going to get the nomination. So this brings us full circle. Drum roll, please. Hillary Clinton. I'm back. So she probably will get the nomination because there's no one to vote for. I mean, there's absolutely, she'll come riding in on the white horse, and she'll be the writing candidate. She'll get it. Bernie can't get it. Pocahontas can't get it. I mean, can you imagine why? Here's a woman that her entire life is made up. High cheekbones, and I'm part Cherokee, and she does her DNA test, and she's 1/1000. It's basically like me. She doesn't have any, but she lied about it all her life. And she used it to get educated, to get in as a minority status. I mean, and this woman is running for president? Are you kidding me? We have Mayor Pete, who knows nothing about how to really run a business, and Mayor Pete's going to become the president? I don't think so. You got Mike Bloomberg. I don't think he stands a chance at all. And he's got real problems, in my opinion. And then you got crazy Bernie, yelling and screaming at everybody. That's all he does is I mean, watch some of his stuff. He's always yelling at the microphone and pointing his finger, and he's an angry man, And all he has to do is offer communism. So that's not going to work. I don't know. I don't know who the Democrats are going to come up with. It'd be very interesting to see. But I just think that the field is a real joke. So I'm going to take a little break here. Let's go to the Jingles commercial. And I think you'll find this really interesting. I've read this before on the air. And folks, if you've got a Jingles, if you're using Jingles, and you've got a testimony, shoot me an email, la@lamarzulli.net, la@lamarzulli.net, and I'll read it right here. This is from Crystal. I'm a 23-year-old stay-at-home mom of with 2 children under 2 years old. And if the Lord wills, many more children to come. My toddler has just started potty training, and I'm so glad that I have Jingles that I ordered last October, because this stuff works great. There you go, folks. I also have a cat and 2 dogs, and inevitably one or the other eats their food too fast, and Jingles to the rescue after they throw up. I have a very sensitive nose, and it really does take the smell away. We got a love seat for free, and by the time we got it home, we realized the previous owner's cat must have gone to the bathroom on it. Well, I told my husband we could Jingles on it, and it didn't work. And if it didn't work, then we would have to throw the love seat out. Jingles works. So in other words, the cats went to the bathroom on the love seat. And now the love seat's in the front room because they sprayed the Jingles on it, took the smell out, took the stain out. Thank you for your recommendation and for the great work you do. It's such a release to have a good cleaner for all the puddles I deal with on a daily basis. And it's always great to listen to your YouTube channel. Thank you. I'll see you on the air, in the air. Love and Christ, Crystal. So www.buyjingles.com. Folks, this stuff really works. If you got a testimony, shoot me an email, la@lamarzulli.net. I'll read it right here. Keep it right here, folks. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Lying in the night car, blue canopy below. Then a searching cry holds the one who lies there. Endless searching cry to understand why. Endless searching cry to understand.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Author Kathleen Watts, aka Thought Continuum, shares a double abduction experience in her book, Catch Me If You Can, a story of alien abduction and culprit plunder. This 1976 true life account of a close encounter in northern Utah near Hill Air Force Base. Imagine driving home from the movies with your spouse when your car suddenly stops working, and it's in that very same moment that you realize you are the only thing animated. Catch Me If You Can, the 5th anniversary edition with lead-in material for the upcoming release of Payback is a Glitch from award-winning author Kathleen Watts. Get your copy today. Log on to thoughtcontinuum.com. That's thoughtcontinuum.com.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Cole Bear. Filling in for Smokey, because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Join me, George Norrie, in Indian Wells, California, May 29th to June 1st for the Contact in the Desert UFO Conference, an epic weekend of exploration into UFOs, ancient civilizations, crop circles, and so much more. Over 150 lectures, panels, workshops, and events with leading experts: Paul Hellyer, Linda Moulton Howe, Nick Pope, Emery Smith, Stephen Greer, Russell Targ, Doc Wallach, Leslie Kane, and more. Get your tickets at contactinthedesert.com. It's time to make contact. Contactinthedesert.com.
Find the podcast on iTunes, iHeart, and Spotify. KGRARadio.com.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for keeping it right here on Acceleration Radio, KGRA, and also on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, please click the little subscribe button. We're now, 112,000. And again, I apologize for not posting. There's a reason for this. I'm in a 28-foot trailer. We were supposed to get files 2 weeks ago. Guy came out, can't put it in there for you, sir. Sorry. It's got to be underground. So we moved the trailer next to the telephone pole. Guy came 2 days ago, and he went, or yesterday, and he goes, "Hey, you got to run the conduit." And I said, "Look, I got the conduit right here. It'll take me 15 minutes." So he didn't want to work, and it didn't get done. So they're coming tomorrow. I got the conduit all run. 220, 110, whatever it takes. And so we'll see what happens. Hopefully we'll be hooked up for Fios, which means I'll be able to Skype and also upload, because it's 1,000 megs up and 1,000 megs down. So I'll be back on YouTube. I have a backlog of stuff I'll be editing, and we'll be having more guests. I want to get into this conference because I will be in Dallas at Hear the Watchman conference coming up, and that's, I think it's limited seating, but there still are some tickets left over. That's March 5th, 6th, and 7th, and I'll be speaking basically on the Days of Chaos, and I'll kind of segue into that in just a little bit. And then right after that, March 27th, 28th, 29th, in Newark, Ohio. By the way, that's where Jingos is made, in Newark, Ohio. But we will be doing the Nephilim Again conference. The Nephilim Again conference, www.nephilimagain.com, nephilimagain.com, past, present, and the near future. The next great conference, the past, present, and the final future of humanity, March 27th, 28th, 29th, Newark, Ohio, held at the historic Cherry Valley Lodge. It's incredible. I've been there. They just remodeled the whole place. It's amazing. We will be there, and it's just Chief Joseph Riverwind, myself, Russ Dizdar. It's going to be fantastic. It's right near the Great Circle Mountain. I'll be going out to the Great Circle Mountain on Sunday and lecturing there. Last time it was pouring rain, but I lectured in the rain, and I will do so again. And there's so much more that I know about it now, having done films on it. And so you'll definitely want to check it out. Mark this down and don't miss the Nephilim Again conference, Friday evening, Saturday all day, and Sunday at the Mounds. Native American Insight into the Giants. On the Trail of a Nephilim, historic evidence. The biblical revelation of real history, as it was in the days of Noah. Does that include the hybrids, the Nephilim? They were here. Are they being sought? Does biblical prophecy reveal they will return? Did the Nazi Gaussmen super race really mean Nephilim? Have scientists sought to recreate them? Were the ancient demon gods and goddesses associated with the Nephilim? Why do alienologists refer to them? And have dark occultists tried by rituals to bring them in again? Does modern pursuit of artificial intelligence include the remaking of hybrids? Is an Artelect a mechanical hybrid? And will they be made to receive a spirit to make them conscious? Check it out, folks. Nephilim Again conference, Nephilim Again conference, nephilimagain.com, nephilimagain.com. It's going to be fantastic, and I would definitely suggest that you check it out. And I can't wait to speak, which brings me into a segue here. Episode 4 is America Stonehenge, the Canaanite Connection. Now, we're going to have all 4 episodes fairly soon on Vimeo, be able to stream them. But go to my website, lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net. By the way, it's a brand new site. We spent a year pulling teeth to get it up and running, but it is up and running, last time I checked anyway. And you can still buy all 4 in the series. The DNA film, which was slated to be number 4, is now bumped to 6. So number 4 is America Stonehenge, the Canaanite Connection, and number 5 will also be part 2 of America Stonehenge, because that site's just incredible. And I'm actually working on the editing right here as I'm in my little 28-foot trailer at night. But number 6 is done. That's the DNA film. So this is episodic, and we're out in the field. We've been to all sorts of places. We've got lots and lots of footage, which we've never we're getting to very slowly. So it's my goal to have 3 films out this year, 4, 5, and 6. Of course, America Stonehenge Part 1, the Canaanite Connection, and America Stonehenge 2. And I'm not sure the title of that yet, but that'll be the connection of the ley lines. You'll find that absolutely fantastic. We were blown away by what we discovered there. Absolutely blown away. And thanks to Dennis and Kelsey Stone. And all this will be in the film. But of course, the DNA we go from 2013 to the present day. And what we show in the film is that these elongated skulls found all over Peru are not the result of cranial deformation, cradle headboarding. They are, we believe, utterly genetic. So with all that in mind, that's really something to think about. And those films will all be coming out soon. But go to the website, lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net. There is a hidden history, folks. There is a hidden history which has been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world. That's why I'm on the trail. That's why I make these films. That's why I travel all over the world and show real evidence, hardcore evidence of why something else is going on. So I'm going to take a couple of questions here, and let me go down to the first one. Let's see who this is by or from. Wow. This is Shabu Varghese, and this is the question. My home church, Assemblies of God, in India, teaches on UFO aliens. They sometimes refer to your work or articles. I'm blown away by that. And, as a pastor myself, I was never a lead pastor, but I'm a pastor, and we do a lot of praying for people at conferences and all this other kind of stuff. But here's this question. Why is it necessary for a child of God to learn what is happening in the interdimensional alien world from a biblical perspective, when more often they don't come across such entities in their day-to-day life? It's a really good question, Shabu. And here's the answer to that. We need to understand Ephesians 6 that talks about, Paul is writing that our weapons are not carnal, that our battle is not with flesh and blood. See, we need to take the whole counsel of God. And that specifically talks about in Ephesians that our warfare is not with flesh and blood. It's with entities. All we need to do is look at the 6 o'clock news and see who rules the planet and what's really going on here. And it goes back to the Genesis 3:15 seed war. And we need to understand what that seed war is really about. That the seed of the dragon will be at enmity at war with the seed of the woman. The coming Messiah, he will crush the dragon's head. Of course, that all happens at Calvary. But what we need to understand and come to grips with and realize is that the seed war is constantly going on. And there is a war that's happening all around us. Most churches are completely oblivious to this. But when I speak at conferences, and this is in our film, in their own words, I ask for a show of hands. How many of you have seen lights in the sky, orbs, strange encounters with alien beings, had sleep paralysis, or had just another encounter with lights in the sky, that type of thing? Upwards of 30 to 35% of the audience raises their hands. And we show this in conference after conference after conference. It's in the film in their own words, and that's how you can find that out. So something is going on here. Something is already here, and it's already impacting the church. And when you go to your youth, what you'll find out, Shabu, is simply this, that many of our youth believe in the so-called ancient alien paradigm than they do the biblical narrative. In fact, they believe that all these ancient structures that we see and all this stuff points back to the validity of the ancient astronaut theorists, which believe that we were seeded here by aliens from another world. I don't believe that at all. I believe that a holy, loving God created us out of nothing and breathed life into us and put his spirit into us. So we're created in the image and likeness of God, which goes against what the ancient aliens and the neo-Darwinists believe. So this is why it's so important, Shabu, so important to understand what's happening. Because this is it. This is the coming great deception. I mean, I've written book after book and films and countless lectures and numerous TV and radio shows talking about all this. That what's imperative for us to understand is this is the coming great deception. The revealing of the so-called extraterrestrial presence is the coming great deception. And it's debatable how much the church will see before we're taken out. What's alarming to me is we're seeing a whole lot. I mean, Tucker Carlson once a month or every 6 weeks or whatever has someone on the show discussing and talking about the validity of UFOs. Heck, KGRA, I mean, you just heard George Noory, they're having contact in the desert. Now, I was invited, and then they withdrew the invitation. I really don't care. I mean, if you want me there, I'm going to tell you what I think. I was just at the Alien Snowfest, and I present a different paradigm. And it's probably to many people, a very unpopular paradigm because it ties back into the biblical prophetic narrative. But as I stated to the people at the Alien Snowfest, I asked them, how many of you think it's okay to abduct a 5-year-old? Not a hand went up. How many of you think it's okay to take sperm or ovum from a man or a woman without their consent? Not a hand went up. How many of you think it's okay to implant people against their will? Not a hand went up. And I just said, you have just validated my position, that this is a nefarious agenda. There is a nefarious agenda with this whole so-called interdimensional entities coming in, and they're not extraterrestrial. They are interdimensional entities. So, Shabu, this is why it's important to teach our children what this is and what's happening, because this is the coming great deception. And unless you know a priori what's happening, unless you've got an answer to it, when you see something, excuse me, you won't know how to deal with it. You won't know how to deal with it. And so I hope that answers your questions. Let me get a slurp here. But this is why it's really, really important. Really important. Let me go here. And another question from, and by the way, folks, I love when you guys ask, send these in. It's really cool. Okay, question for the show. This is from Dan. Thanks, Dan, for writing in. Appreciate it. Your thoughts on MK Ultra and the potential ramification in terms of sleeper agents. I met a woman on my working a temp job, a victim of this. She didn't know that I was recording her speak. Let's go that with the MK Ultra deal. I think people were switched on. Russ Disdor and I have talked about this. It's very real. The whole sleeper thing where people were taken and programmed. I believe that Sirhan, who, by the way, has no recollection of killing RFK, none at all, still can't remember it. I believe he's a victim of MK Ultra. Perfect candidate. And, they kill the president. They have this guy come in. But that whole deal with RFK, the evidence goes missing. The Los Angeles Police Department destroyed the evidence. It sat in their warehouse, and, it's 20 years later, we just destroy it. It's unbelievable. It's kind of like vacuuming the Shroud of Turin, making sure that, forensics that get better and better every year, that we won't be able to go back. But I digress. Yeah, they're sleeper agents. They're all over. They can be triggered in different ways. And we see that they are triggered. I think the VTech shooter was a graphic example of someone being triggered. This nutcase out in Germany yesterday, walking in. Now, that might be a hate crime. I don't know. But he also could be triggered. He also could be MK Ultra and given an assignment, and then he goes and he does this thing. The Colorado shooter, certainly, I believe, was MK Ultra. This is real. This is real. And I will definitely check out your YouTube video. And I hope that answers a little bit about it. Number two, why are we not seeing any new creatures appear? It's always the same variety, aliens, Bigfoot, etc. Not that I want anything new, but I'm just curious why the narrative hasn't expanded. Well, you've got black-eyed kids, which I believe are the hybrid children, which never really look into adult. So they're stunted. Somehow they don't get it right, and you'll see a lot of that. I think Bigfoot is a Nephilim, a modern-day Nephilim, as does other people that we've had on the show talking about it. Well, that's an up-and-coming show for Armor Trail of a Nephilim, because I think is a definitive connection between the sightings of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and ancient Nephilim. I think the two are linked like this, absolutely. And, the Greys are biological constructed suits that the demons inhabit. And that's why they all look like, and they move in very automaton-like ways. So I hope that helps. But the hybrids, and this is the work of Dr. David Jacobs, believes, as I do, that they can pass now. And we talked about this, Al Matthews, and Al's been on the show numerous times, and we'll come on again in the near future. But Al had this encounter with a hybrid woman when she took off her glasses and she appeared normal. But then the eyes went ding, and they went sort of cat-like, and he pushed her off of him, and she let out this really hideous, evil laugh, and he fled the scene and became a Christian because of that encounter. I believe that she was a hybrid female. We've also had other accounts of people interacting with hybrid females. So let's go on from there. Hi, Ellie. This is from Wesley. Me and two friends. Oh no, that's not it. I'm sorry. That's from my good friend Wesley Sangiorgi, who does all the CGI on our in our shows. So let me go here. Hi, Ellie. I read the book of Og, and I was amazed how angry the giants were towards Nimrod. They feared him but hated him. He practiced circumcision when the giants did not. What are your thoughts? You know, when you get into that whole deal, you know, Og was the laugh of the Rephaim, according to the biblical narrative. And I have not read the book of Og, so I'm at a loss here to really answer your question about it. But it's, you know, we get back into antiquity, and there's some really, really very strange things happening. Now, we went to Nimrod's castle, which ties into your deal. And there are two builders. There are two sets of stones. There are stones in Nimrod's castle, and I filmed there, which were thrown down. Those are the original stones. And there are some other parts of the wall, in my opinion, which are very reminiscent of what we saw in Peru. This is Nephilim architecture, fallen angel technology, in my opinion. But there's other really interesting parts to Nimrod's castle, which, in my opinion, held back pre-flood. It goes back to the pre-flood world, and we know that Og or Og, people will pronunciate that differently, but you know, Og of Bashan, the last of the giants. Now that leads me to something which I'm going to let you kind of briefly talk about this. But years ago on YouTube, there was a video showing a man standing in a huge ancient megalithic doorway. These were the lost cities of the Golan, basically, and further into the Bashan area, okay? And he was standing there, and all of that has been completely wiped off the net. You can't find anything anymore. Now, there's a book I read. It's from 1882, and I don't have the book yet, but I've been reading excerpts of it online on a PDF file. It's from 1882, and this pastor is standing in these lost cities that were intact, and they're only built for one reason, to house the giants. And this ties back into the biblical narrative. So once again, we see that all this has been scrubbed, that people have no idea that it's there anymore. But I believe it was a couple of things here. They went in, the powers that be went in and dismantled the cities, or they covered them with sand, or they've just got guards around them, but they've been scrubbed from the internet. You can't find pictures of them anywhere. At least I can't. If you're hearing this and watching this on YouTube or on KGRA, and if you know anything about it, shoot me an email, la@lamarzulli.net. And I want to just tie back into another thing, Leon, here, that the Nephilim were in a fixed state. They're the soulless ones, and they're in a fixed state. There's no redemption there. They have one goal. And when I speak to Chief Joseph Riverwind about this, you know, he talks about the red-haired giants, and they were cannibalistic. They were sexually perverse. I mean, they were like, you know, from the other side of the aisle, as it were. So, I mean, that's what's going on, and that's who these entities were. And I got to tell you, I honestly think the Nephilim are on the earth now. I think that our work on the Kandahar giant is that's the one that got me in trouble with the deep state under the Obama presidency, when I was contacted by the deep state and threatened 3 different times by the guy from the deep state. And he said the reason why you're on the radar is because of your work on the Kandahar giant. Now, Paul Begley was also approached by a guy from the deep state and threatened. And he said, we have a list. This is under the Obama administration. And some of that's been dismantled by Trump. We have a list, and you're on the list. Remember, I was audited 3 years in a row, 13, 14, and 15. And it all went away when Trump got elected. How does that work? So I'm not saying this, but I'm alluding to it, certainly. There's a possibility that I was targeted because I am a Christian voice, a Christian conservative. I was on the list along with people like Gary Stearman and Steve Quayle and others, and Paul Begley, right? All of us who have a Christian voice out there and are talking about this stuff. They don't like that. They don't like that. And so was I censored? Absolutely. I mean, I'm censored on YouTube, as is everybody else. You know, if I take this Acceleration Radio and I try to monetize it, instantly it will come up unsuitable for some advertisers, and we can't monetize it, which is why we have Jingos, which circles back to that. So if you want to help us out here, go to jingos.com, www.buyjingos.com, www.buyjingos.com. So, folks, once again, Nephilim Again Conference in Newark, Ohio, and it's at the end of March. Please consider coming there. I know that it's going to be really just a pack full of information just packed to the gills. I can't wait to be there and talk about. And I'm going to kind of do a potpourri because I have so much information. I just don't have enough time to give it all. But I'll be a smattering of all the different films because we're on the trail of the Nephilim. That's what the series is about. And I would ask that if you want to help us out here, the best way to do it is to buy or rent the films and invite a bunch of people over and show it to them. It wakes people up. It wakes people up. It wakes the church up. You know, yesterday I was on my way to pick up Peggy at the airport, and there was a pastor on talking about Noah's flood and Genesis 6 and Genesis 3:15. And he was going, you know, I've been reading some researchers and they're talking about the Nephilim and fallen angels having sex with the women. While this might seem really far out, I do believe it would happen. So there's certain segments of the church which are actually waking up. And as we heard from our friend over in India, some was a God church, you know, they actually refer to my work, and that's a great honor for me. And, you know, all is well in that realm. Anyway, folks, that's all the time I have for tonight. I'm going to end a little bit early. Again, I'll be at the Hear the Watchman Conference in Dallas, Texas. That's coming up. Check it out, hearthewatchman.com, hearthewatchman.com. Thanks for watching Acceleration Radio and listening to it right here on KGRA. Remember, folks, I'll see you on the air or in the air. Thanks for watching.
You have been listening to Acceleration Radio Live, and any rebroadcast or duplication of this program or program content without express written permission from the KGRA DB or L.A. Marzulli himself is strictly prohibited. The Acceleration Radio Show with L.A. Marzulli, in direct cooperation with the internet website kgraradio.com. To find more on L.A., visit his website at lamarzulli.net.